everybody, this is Hayden from Dumas Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to come at you with another video, sort of like my last creatine video, talking about another subject that a lot of people either don't know about or try to throw out myths about and really get a confusion in the knowledge of community of exercise, things like that. And today I'm going to talk about the term DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, and the difference in fully onset DOMS and regular muscle soreness as a good thing. And whenever I say the difference in the two, I'm talking about the different levels of it and what is bad and what is not. DOMS itself usually occurs about 6 to 8 hours after exercise in small amounts and is at its peak around 48 hours, sometimes on to the third day of 72 hours. And basically it occurs due to your body either doing an unfamiliar exercise you haven't done before or being put into an intense setting of a lot of stress on the muscle, things like that. Now, the major, well, not major, but one of the basic myths that I put down in here that I want to talk about is that DOMS is a result of buildup of lactic acid in the muscles and toxic metabolic waste that's produced from your body. Now, while this does happen whenever you lift, you do get lactic acid buildup in your muscles from exercising them, and there is toxic metabolic waste in your body after you have broken down muscles, things like that. But it's been rejected through multiple studies. Obviously, no side either way has been 100% proven, but I'd say about 90% of the time, that reason for DOMS is completely rejected in research studies. They don't even question it anymore, which was the original belief. But just to get into DOMS, basically a short little definition or reason behind it. It comes from microtrauma to connective tissue in your muscles and overall tissue in your muscles, I should say. And the first thing about it is a lot of DOMS in exercise comes from the eccentric phase of a workout, which I will talk about what the eccentric phase is and why it does that towards the end of the video. Then another thing is the definition or the belief that DOMS causes like insane amounts of muscle growth, and the opposite belief that DOMS does not cause any muscle growth at all, and it's absolutely, you should not have DOMS at all or be sore at all if you want to gain muscle. That's completely untrue. However, the fact that soreness is an indicator of muscle growth, while you don't have to be sore to gain muscle, which you don't, you can go hit exercises that are familiar with your body. You can still cause muscle growth, which I will get into with the mechanisms here in a minute. But soreness can be an indicator of a little bit enhanced muscle growth. And the third thing I want to get into is basically what causes muscle growth, which is the term hypertrophy. And just to pull out a really basic dictionary definition of hypertrophy, it is the enlargement of organs or tissues due to an increase in the cell size of said organ or tissue. So, talking about muscles, any muscles, organs or tissues, whenever the cell sizes increase, obviously goes hand in hand, your muscle size is going to increase too. I'm going to get into the three mechanisms of hypertrophy, which are mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage, or exercise-induced muscle damage. And I'm going to give short definitions and little explanations of each of these. I'm not really going to go in depth on all of them, except for the one that's directly related to DOMS. If you want a video talking about all three of these, I'll try to make a video on it. Just let me know in the comments or a message or something. I'll get to that. But the first one, mechanical tension, basically down to layman's terms, is heavy lifting. to the point of generating the highest amount of like muscle force through a full range of motion. So it's about like a 90% of your 1 rep max. Being able to do a full range of motion with the highest amount of force possible. That's muscle tension. Metabolic stress is basically is, through the title, stress produced on your metabolic system from injury or disease. So whenever your body is recovering from an injury or disease, it has stress put on the metabolic system, which then increases the rate at which your metabolism runs, and in turn can cause hypertrophy. And the last one, which is related to this, is exercise-induced muscle damage, or EIMD. And that's basically caused from tears in the macromolecules of your direct muscle tissue and connective tissues from eccentric exercise, which I will get into. It causes damage, or what we would call good injury, to your muscle fibers. And that results, okay, so whenever your muscle fibers tear and they're damaged, due to protein synthesis and other recovery methods in your body, it starts to repair the muscle. And when the muscle is repaired, it grows to increase its strength and size for further protection, in which you go and tear it again, and it's a full cycle, tearing it, repairing, tearing and repairing, to grow the muscle. And that's from your, again, exercise-induced muscle damage. Now, I want to go into the fact that DOMS up to a high level can be counterproductive. If you have not only combined something that is insanely intense that you're not used to, along with the exercise that you're doing that's that intense, is something you've never done before, you're probably ended up with a really bad case of DOMS. In fact, sometimes it can last, the soreness of the DOMS can have aftershock up to like a week or two, depending on how intense it is, if you've never done it before, if you're barely starting exercise, things like that. And if you have something like that, you can reduce the force production, because if your muscles are so sore you can barely move them, you won't have as much force being put out of them. You'll also reduce your ability to have a range of motion. Anybody who's ever been really sore, sometimes your muscles feel short and they feel really tight. For example, if your arms are really sore, sometimes you can't straighten them out all the way. You have trouble straightening them out, and that's just, again, due to the soreness. And getting into like certain exercise examples, which I was talking about with the eccentric phase, the three major types of contraction and muscle growth are concentric, eccentric, and isometric. Just talking about a really basic exercise that most people understand is just a regular bicep curl, whether you're doing it with a bar or dumbbells. The concentric phase is where the muscle shortens, which is seen in the bicep. As you curl up, you see the muscle get shorter. As it comes up, you'll see it shorten. That's the concentric phase. The isometric phase is if the lift is held at the top, holding it in a contraction point, not letting it extend. That's isometric. And the eccentric phase is whenever you let it down from that point, not letting it drop completely, but letting it down from its contracted point while keeping the muscle tight. A good eccentric phase for a bicep curl example is, just letting it down really slowly, as if it's pulling you down, but you're still trying to keep it up. And that keeps your muscle tight and lets it down slowly, so it basically forces the muscle to tear. And doing this, eccentrically forcing muscle damage, is going to also force muscle growth. And forcing muscle growth and muscle damage can lead to soreness. So the point that I want to get into majorly with this topic is that, does DOMS or muscle soreness overall mean that you're gaining muscle? Not necessarily. You don't have to have it to gain muscle, I should say. Just because you're not sore doesn't mean you're not gaining muscle. But if you are sore, or even low levels of DOMS, it can mean that you are having an increased level of muscle growth than you would if you were not sore. And to point out that DOMS is not caused by lactic acid buildup or toxic metabolic waste. And finally, that DOMS is not bad necessarily. If you have high levels of it, like I said, can be bad, can be counterproductive, but low levels of soreness to medium or moderate levels of soreness are not bad for you, and they don't mean you're inhibiting muscle growth. So that's all I'm going to get into for this video. If you had a point that you wanted me to explain more in this, you want me to talk about something else, there's anything you wanted me to expand on, or if there's another video idea you have, leave it in the comments or PMs. Also, any questions you have overall. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up down below, hit that subscribe button, and keep an eye out for more of our videos. Thank you for watching, guys.